Ladies and gentlemen and variations thereof, welcome to the Selectives Lorecast, a casual Elder Scrolls podcast. My name is Rotten Deadite. With me today are...
I am James, also known as Aramithius.
And I'm Felix, also known as Banuhana Masaishi. And Chris is very racist today.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
I am terrible. That is now on the record. Today,
You can't undo it.
Today we're supposed to talk about Sermon 21, but we're not going to do that because it's April 1st. We're going to talk about the Lusty Argonian Maid. So everybody strap in. My heritage is showing. Yep, I'm a good old boy. What can I say?
Everybody strap in. Yeah, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Strap in, straps.
That's what she said.
So, the Lusty Argonian Maid. Let's do meta commentary really quick. It's a book in Morrowind.
Yes.
Yes,
First showed up
by
in
Crassius
Morrowind.
Curio.
Yeah, written by a counselor for House Hlalu named Crassius Curio, who is, and I'm being conservative here, a freak.
Sex pest.
He's definitely
a sex pest.
Definitely would end up getting Me Too'd. Yeah. Definitely would have had some lawsuits.
Yes.
Definitely would have been paying off porn stars. And so he was apparently a playwright in his spare time when he wasn't being a counselor for a major political force.
Corrupt political force, mind you.
Well,
Yes.
that's what I said. Take it as read. Corrupt
It's a political force. So,
yeah.
yes.
And they are we already demonetized? Oh, okay, all right. That's fair. Yeah, it's fair. It's a good
April
call.
Fool's joke. Thanks,
good.
Twitch. Now
Good
remonetize
call.
me, please.
No,
All right.
no, they won't.
No.
And so many players, if you hang out on r/Morrowind or similar places, you'll eventually always get like the new player to Morrowind who has not been reading forums will pop on and go, "What is this guy's deal?" And yeah,
That's what we're here to explain today.
yeah. Well, no, we're not here to explain that because I don't have a degree in psychoanalysis and I'm not trained to discuss hypersexuality. So instead, we're going to talk about the nonsense that Crassius Curio wrote. When he was a playwright, and there's not really a whole lot of information about how successful he was. Apparently, he wrote a play called one that was fairly well received, called "The Dance of the Three-Legged Guar."
Yes.
Which
that
is a
in itself-
euphemism, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he does outright say that he is openly writing tat because he talks about the Lusty Argonian Maid in the sense of, and to quote his dialogue, it's a rather bawdy tale, but I think it will play well with the people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's
in other words, he's
Know
setting
your
the
audience,
lowest bar.
folks.
Yeah.
yeah, he's being a hack.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, whatever it takes to put money on the table. But you're a Hlalu counselor. You've already got a big enough table with money on it.
Yep.
And but that Crassius Curio was not always a counselor in Hlalu. He used to be apparently homeless. As we discover in a quest in Elder Scrolls Online, I believe.
How?
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay.
Timey-wimey shenanigans.
Let's see. Or is it? Or do we find out about this in? No, this is something we found out about in Solstheim in the Dragonborn expansion. There's a quest in Raven Rock with the Arano family, who talk about how they had a history with Crassius Curio way back in the day, way back in the second or third era.
Third era.
Yeah.
Where Crassius Curio was a capture position. Okay.
If you have dead air on your bingo card, you can get it here.
The problem is I'm getting lost in this paragraph I'm trying to read, and it's literally like I'll read like 2 lines and then skip back to the other. It's yeah, it's just a learning disability,
it's one
folks.
of those dialogues. Yep.
So apparently there was a family in Morrowind who helped him out, and yes, near destitution, he eventually petitioned the Arano family seeking shelter, expecting to be turned away. Instead, he was offered a place to stay in their home. He would eventually work his way up the ranks of the great house. And by the year 427 of the Third Era, he had become a counselor. So as thanks to the Urano family, he gifted them an autographed copy of the Lusty Argonian Maid, which you go out and find for them in a little sort of side quest. Which I guess, that's fine. But
Son, this smut has been in the family for generations.
Thousands of years. And by
I don't know why your Dunmer suddenly became like working class Italian from the Bronx.
Thousands of, yeah, right. I don't know. Well, usually I go for some kind of weird sort of, it's not exactly British. It's some kind of strange, kind of vaguely posh accent. But then you do the voice and it starts to sound a little different.
I was just trying to go for a straight up Morrowind copy because I loved how the Dunmer in that game sounded like they all started smoking and drinking from the age of 5.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's like yes, that was very funny. I'm laughing so hard.
Well, if you have to breathe ash for most of your life, that'll do it.
I'm walking here and yeah.
We are so awful and terrible.
Well, this is the day
if
to
the
do
various
it.
afterlives of the Elder Scrolls were real, we would all be burning in the worst ones. We really would.
Oh, never mind. I was about to talk about a mod, but okay. So anyway, Crassius Curio, a lot of people, I should say, more meta commentary. A lot of people were interested, to say the least, to find a copy of the Lusty Argonian Maid in Elder Scrolls Online as a random drop. And a lot of people said, how is this possible? It was written in the Third Era.
Yeah.
And
from the future.
For a fair number of patches and content, we never heard about, like, why that and other books turned out to be in an earlier game, and it turns out to be because of.
In fairness, some of them were just backdated, like the Frontier Conquest and Accommodation. They just literally changed 3E to 2E in the text and changed the publication date. So I'd imagine quite a few of them wound up like that, and quite a few of them have absolutely no reference points whatsoever.
That's lazy. That's cheating. 0 out of 10.
In the case of Ruminations on the Elder Scrolls and a number of other books. What we discovered in I'm trying to see if this is okay. Is this are they going to tell us where this is in? It's in Shadowfen. There's a Ayleid ruin called Gandren and Ruins in central Shadowfen. I don't know what patch this was added on. Other people might be able to help me on that.
I know nothing about the patch history, so
maybe chat might help. Yeah, it's because of Hermaeus Mora's. Thank you, Yagni. It's Hermaeus Mora's time-bending library. It's basically the Gandren in Ruins was built by an Ayleid Daedra worshipper who worshipped Hermaeus Mora, and this person this elf built a library that was enchanted to bring books in from across space and time. And some of the books that it brought in were, the Lusty Argonian Maid, and a few others. But what's interesting about this is that this apparently happened way back in, like, it could be early Second Era or possibly even First Era when this thing was built. And it would have been First Era because the Ayleid Revolution happened. The Alessian Revolution happened before ESO. So
yes,
this Ayleid ruin brings in this book, and then the book is disseminated to whoever's horny enough to read it, and suddenly
disseminated.
Suddenly begins to inspire lots of other novels, and there's actually a book by a guy named Tellinger the Artificer.
Oh, yeah. The sultry Argonian Maid, yes.
Well, he writes a book about the Lusty Argonian Maid as an oral tradition,
Okay.
and the Lusty Argonian Maid inspired other cultures to write similar plays, including, here's a list: the Lusty Bosmeri of Valenwood, the Gageets wrote Two Moons for Sugar, the Bretons wrote Sornhelm's Lusty Orifice. Yeah, that'll get you demonetized. The Red Guards wrote The Sandy Spear of Alakir, and the Nords wrote The Maiden's Tight Hold. Yeah, it's Bootstrap Paradox.
And on that, I think we call this episode. There we go.
So, conservatively speaking, it's possible Crassius Curio wrote his novel without knowing about these other books. It's possible that Crassius Curio wrote his novel knowing about the other ones and just considered it a continuing tradition, hence the Bootstrap Paradox. It's also very possible that Crassius Curio found the earlier version of it, named himself after the author, and published it as his own work, which is unlikely considering that it had been around for thousands of years. People probably would have known about it.
Yep.
Who knows what's going on? All that we know for sure is it was a creative way of solving what was almost definitely a mistake. That somebody in ESO put the book into the loot level list without thinking about whether or not it was appropriate lore-wise. And I mean,
quick, make lore out of this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, it's always important to remember that really hardcore Elder Scrolls lore nerds like us are an absurdly small minority, and that
we're like a perpetual thorn in Todd Howard's side.
Yeah, the number of people who posted to forums complaining about the Lusty Argonian Maid being in the Second Era probably numbered in less than a dozen, and they were probably all the people who noticed.
There were probably also mutuals of ours.
Mm-hmm. It's merely space bending since it essentially just pulls from the Apocrypha. That's a good point. Yeah. Okay, so this actually derails us onto the idea of whether or not the Daedric planes exist outside of time, which is not a horrible. It's not a horrible proposition considering the fact that linear time was made specifically for Mundus, and Oblivion lies outside or around Mundus.
However, I would point out that linear time was created when Akatosh was formed in most of the tellings that I can find. It wasn't created when Mundus was formed. Mundus was there to put limitation on things, not to have time happen.
Right.
I mean, time is a limitation, but I think the line is, if I can remember the monomyth correctly, Akatosh forms and time begins. It's literally that simple. Yeah. So long as there is Akatosh, there is time. So, in theory, Oblivion is subject to time. But you've got things like Fanuit Hen's Loremaster's Archives, where he is plainly confused about when stuff is supposed to be happening. Like, he talks about the Battle Spire as if that's all been over and done with. And there's a case of, how's this happened? Will it happen? I don't quite know anymore. Can you please get it straight for me, Tutor Aparius?
Right, yeah.
So...
We've got a couple of interesting takes in chat. Gagny is proposing that linear time wasn't created when Akatosh was formed. Unlinear time was formed when Akatosh was formed. Which I would like you to expand on, but Draylin suggests that time was created with Akatosh, but linear time was created with Mundus. But I think Akatosh was created after Mundus was created. You could also, but you could also say that it is impossible to say that that Akatosh was created after Mundus, because until Akatosh was created, there was no after anything. Because the word after requires a linear concept of time, which didn't exist until Akatosh did.
Felix is waving his hands.
Time for me to get my red guard on. So, all right.
There you go.
Yeah, so it's laid out, at least in the previous world, if you want to consider that Yokudar, just how the world in general works. It says that Satak was the first, aka one serpent, who came before, and all the worlds to come rested in the glimmer of his scales. But they had no room to move or even be. And then the worlds called out for something to save them and allow for things to change. And this was Akel, the hunger. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Akel sounds very similar to Akka, as in, the Akka shard. And so as things start to move, so like, hey, look, we have all the worlds and they're here. So there's space, but they're not moving or changing. So now you need time. So first came space, then came time. That caused Satak to start biting its own tail. That causes the cycle. Akel as Akka, aka Akka Shard. The hunger is actually like what would become Akatosh. It's an earlier subgradient.
And given that you tend to conflate Akel with, or associate Akel with Sep, that also puts more fuel into the fire of Lorcan and Akatosh being the same thing.
Yeah, well, again, it's the typical Redguard thing. It's like, yeah, what's the difference? They're all basically the same god. So yeah, that's this is why I love the Redguards, man. But also though, I just want to kind of point out that like that's probably where it really comes from. And I think there's even some book, I forget if it's in like a version of the monomyth or it's in like not the Mysterium Xerxes, some other book, might have even been by the commentaries by Mankar Cameron, but when there's a book somewhere that mentions that it wasn't Akatosh who first actually caused time, it was actually Anuiel who saw like the world and then like caused things to by like perceiving things. Then that allowed with the first understanding of what their tasks were to be, that's then when time actually starts as a concept. And then linear time is Ariel. I think I recall seeing a book somewhere that was making the distinction. So like Ariel, Akatosh, we can understand that's kind of the same kind of correction. Thank you, Mystical Monkey Man, for separating the dragon from the elf. But I think that like someone was trying to say that it's actually Anuiel that causes Anuiel's interactions with Lorcan or Padme or whoever that causes like time to actually happen as a thing because of their interaction. And like that allows the concept to be, and then the actual cycle or the concept of linear time is then the next subgradient of Ariel, who's like, oh, okay, so that's my purpose. Okay, cool.
So is time Sige? Is
time-ish?
Yeah, because Sige was the idea of the impossible, of Anu finally doing something, or Anuiel finally doing something, and so the idea of change without, or the idea of change at all needs time in some way, shape, or form, because you need movement, you need something to shift, and if you have time, then you have to have Sithis, and so in some way, Akatosh as a time thing is related to Sige in and of itself.
Oh yeah, it has to be. Yeah, because in the respect that like a light and an object bathed in light is related to its shadow, you can't have one without getting the other. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so
I can't believe we actually got like some good lore going
like
on.
actual.
The fucking
I knew we would.
Argonian
I knew
Maid.
we would. I knew we would. Come on.
Yes.
Come on. We do this all the time.
Yes.
Come on. So the so the Lusty Argonian Maid, back to the original thing, is for those of you who have not read this book, I don't know. I mean, first off, I envy you. But it's basically just a collection of you know, metaphors, I guess is a polite way to put it.
Innuendos.
Innuendo. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. And it's almost certain that apparently at some point Crassius Curio was having problems finding actors to play in the play.
Gee, I wonder why.
Which doesn't surprise me. There's only I know from my experience in a very distantly observing behind the scenes stuff in Hollywood, is that you're only going to cast two types of actors for this kind of role. You're either going to cast an actor who hasn't done a lot of work in a while and was never very popular and is hungry as fuck, or you're going to cast an actor who's so freaking method that they are looking to completely divorce themselves from another character that they are famous for or something.
Imagining now Daniel Day-Lewis reading the script and being like, my God, this is perfect for me.
I could really sink my teeth into this role. It's certainly not something anyone will expect. Yeah.
We have fun here.
I was wondering if I could ask the actor, if I could ask the director if I could possibly play the Argonian maid.
I'm surprised that that Crassius doesn't try and get it put on in the House of Earthly Delights in Suran. They would totally do that down there.
I think that's part of the joke, though, right? That his work is so bad that even the Dunmer, who are like the horniest of elves, won't even touch it. That's how bad it is. The Dunmer are like, listen, Inwa, even we have standards.
Yeah. There's a high demand for Argonian actors. Well,
Yeah.
They're slaves, so getting dicey there, folks.
There is certainly like House Slalu would have some kind of rule about how, we don't allow Argonians to play Argonians in the play.
No.
It'd be some old school Shakespeare crap about how women aren't allowed to play women. And
I put it past him.
yeah. And but the Lusty Argonian Maid also has, I should also mention, has been referenced in a number of other games.
Yes.
Including it was mentioned it's in Adventure Time, the cartoon. It's mentioned in RuneScape as the Lusty Asgardian Maid. And then in World of Warcraft, there's an item you can loot called a steamy romance novel, The Lusty Draconian Mage, excuse me, which is also smut, and
So,
written
kids, if
by
you
an
wanna
author who
understand
likes to do
memetics,
self-inserts. Yeah.
This is like textbook memetics.
It has kind of become a meme. There are a lot of Skyrim players who know the Lusty Argonian Maid but have never heard of the 36 Lessons, and or any other like relatively important book. I remember at some point or another reading a thread on r/Skyrim that was people talking about, have any of you guys actually read any of the books? Some of these are really good, and it was like, talking about like the last year of 29 whatever, and
2920.
2920,
yeah. And people were mentioning was it Thief, Mage King, and a couple of other like long books, and of course somebody pops in and goes, Lusty Argonian Maid, and people know that book. It's got a reputation in among gaming fans.
Yeah, because apparently enlightenment. Who needs enlightenment when Argonian tale is eternal?
Yeah.
It's far easier.
Argosy is eternal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you liked Argosy? Is that? I got a laugh out of my wife. Yeah.
Who need their Argosy age? Oh my god!
The real world, perhaps basis is a book like the Lister. There's quite an amount of literature devoted towards wealthy white guys sowing their wild oats to a non-white female servant. Yes, that is accurate. It does play to this this sort of cliche of the submissive, horny maid and the rich master kind of aristocratic male lead, and
it's like those awful
stopping the help
romance novels.
But stopping the help has always been a thing that rich people are frequently accused of, and
that's also referenced elsewhere in the Elder Scrolls, actually, because the real Baron Zaya,
I was going to say,
the way that she's put across in that. I mean, she had a hand in writing it, so it's not going to be entirely negative PR for her. But that's entirely the stuff that's playing into the whole idea of you're going to expect Dunmer females to be promiscuous because that's what they are.
Yeah,
it's that.
Yeah,
it's
they're
that
just like that.
Other.
Yeah. There's the kind of like the exotic Asian fetish kind of bullshit happening.
Yeah.
And like, isn't that some of the comparisons that people were making, that in many ways the Dunmer have like a lot of at least superficial similarities to Chinese people in terms of like, honoring the ancestors, like ancestral tombs and ancestor worship. And again, like, that's why I say very superficial ways. Like, I obviously don't look at Denver and think, oh yeah, that's totally like China with all the like silt striders and ashlands and everything. It's like, yeah, no, obviously not. But I remember some people were kind of looking at that and thinking, oh yeah, and with like some of the costumes that you could see with some of the robes, it's like, okay, squinting, I guess you can kind of see it, but
Yeah, a
it was
little.
also just like that
Yeah.
like comparison that I remember seeing back in the days also just absolutely reeked to me of that classic kind of, oh, precious, delicate Asian lotus flower. And I'm like, clearly you didn't have Asian friends growing up
Yeah.
and learned about tiger moms and dragon
Right.
moms. So
Right.
it shows.
Yeah, it's fun. Like, so I used to be married to a Vietnamese woman, and we're gonna go way off topic here. And I had a coworker of mine back when I was working at GameStop. Met my wife, my ex-wife, and she, she was very polite. And then afterwards, he sort of pulled me aside, and he was like, "Man, you are so lucky." And I'm like, "What do you want about? This guy's kind of young." And he's like, "Well, you're dating an Asian woman. That's got to be great, right? What's that like?" And I'm like, "What do you imagine it's like?" And he's like, and he gets really embarrassed, very small. He shrinks like kind of like you can see it. He realizes that he's fucked up, and he kind of like he goes, "Well, they're really, submissive, right?" And I was like, "Man, get out more."
Yeah, really. Get off of 4chan. My
yeah,
God.
get off of 4chan. Yeah, maybe check out less porn. Maybe. Do we not have? People don't have links to Domingo.
I have already pinged it, but that's
okay.
the once.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
And
yes, bingo time.
Yes.
it's
surprised
both a
someone
class
hasn't
and a race
gotten
thing. Yep. Mhm.
Bingo yet, given like the free space, the dead air. I showed up like a few minutes late.
There's a lot of
we're
options on that
wildly
thing,
off
man.
topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have like there's not really fortunately, I mean, like I should have probably led with this in this episode, but today's going to be short because there's not a whole lot to cover here. And but there's just enough so that I didn't feel comfortable going into Sermon 21 because read Sermon 21. We're going to be there for hours. It might be a two-parter. It's the introduction of the look at the tower sideways thing that everybody loves. So
we decided to pull the ultimate April Fool's joke and
spend a half an
mess
hour
with everybody. It's like you thought we were going to really get into lore. No, we are talking about Tail today.
No, we're talking about we're talking about Tail. Yeah.
No enlightenment. Only horny posting.
Only only getting bonked. That's it. And
bonked by Muwatra. There you go.
Yeah. Let's see.
There was part of me that was thinking: are there some intentional parallels between Crassius Curio's upbringing and what people were thinking of Vivek's upbringing? Because warrior poets, spears brought on the streets. All
I
that
don't
stuff.
know.
But
you know what, James? All I'll
know.
say is that life imitates art, which means truly the Lusty Argonian Maid is a work of art.
Mm-hmm. It's just the Lusty Argonian Maid lives in all of us, James. I think we all agree with that. Yeah. The real Lusty Argonian Maid was the friends we made along the way. Yeah. Yeah. Right here, man. Right here. Right here. All right. And on that lovely note,
where's God in here? Where's the maid in here?
I think Dralian has made
need a
the
dramatic
most
reading. No.
Yeah, the most fantastic typo and most appropriate typo.
Mm-hmm.
Redong.
Redong.
Yes,
Yeah.
a dramatic redong.
No reading. No. Like I don't know if, like way back in the day when I did the 36 lessons audio, people were like, you should read the Lusty Argonian Maid, and I made a promise then, never gonna happen. Never gonna happen.
And here you are years later.
But if you sub to my OnlyFans.
And then there's our sexy fireman style calendar coming out. Release date never.
Release date never. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
After I lose all this belly weight, which is never. Yeah. All right. There's the sultry Argonian Bard. I forgot about. Oh fuck me! I forgot about the sultry Argonian Bard. Hold on.
Oh, come on. What are we doing here? We dare call ourselves Floorbeards. My God.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is wrong with us?
Yes.
So, the author Elia Erdane only wrote one thing, apparently.
Yes, this.
I mean, when you write a masterpiece, it's your magnum opus. Do you really need to write anything else?
And it's also not found in Dragonborn. So this is kind of imply, and the name to me also says that this is not a Dunmer who's writing this.
And it's found not only in the Dawnguard expansion, it's also found in Elder Scrolls Online. So yet another book that was brought back in time by the Alien Ruins. Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
So
and Drellian makes another point that these things are multiple acts long. So how many
that's right,
kind of
yeah, there's 7 acts minimum of the Lusty Argonian Maid. Yeah.
I mean, how many gags are we going to have with these things?
Seemed like he pretty much said all he wanted to say in the first 3 acts. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of almost the equivalent of, well, how many more episodes of Honey, Where Are My Pants do you really need to see? To reference the Lego movie. But,
where are my pants? Yeah.
Well, some people really like one thing, and why stop beating the dead horse if it doesn't stop spitting out money? So.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, true.
The Lusty Argonian Maid wasn't originally Argonian, was it? What, Rob?
No.
What? Where's that? Huh?
Are we actually learning something new today?
Yeah,
Wait,
that's
I'm
news to me.
Yeah.
Us learning what?
No, we know everything.
Oh, the sultry Argonian bard is the lesbian version by the look of it. But yeah. So
Elia Erdane, of course, casts herself as the main character.
Yes.
And as is tradition. As is tradition.
Yes.
A great day for Canada and, of course, the world. Sure, he wrote a lot of...
I had to stop there.
Yeah. I don't know anything about the maid not being Argonian originally.
No.
But Rob, feel free to inform me, but I don't think so.
Well, I think that might have been something about that, quite who would have been performing as the Argonian, because they wouldn't have had the Argonian on stage, or an Argonian on stage performing the thing. But
out of curiosity, though, just like on the nature of theater productions, we also get a bit more insight into how theater works, at least in Morrowind, in the Tribunal expansions.
Yes.
Where it's like, yeah, look, and then you need to go on stage, say these lines, and then someone's going to come attack you, and they need to actually kill the assassin. Which, like, for me as a theater kid, that was like the ultimate dream side quest, right? Like, it's like, wait, I get to kill someone for real on stage? Awesome, But I wonder, though, and again, I haven't played ESO, and I know I need to fix that. But are there any other representations? Because it'd be nice to see sort of different performance traditions. Like, does someone do it more like a Greek style where there's like a chorus and masks? I assume that the Bretons are basically going to just be like Shakespeare clothes, like, verily saith I, and it's like, yeah, okay, yes, your Breton's very good. But like, is there someone, say for example, like, do the Khajiit do the kind of like shadow puppet theater that's common in Southeast Asia? Like,
that'd be awesome.
This is why, like, I would love to know the different theater traditions of Tamriel, and now I kind of want to write that.
There is a House of Reveries.
Yeah.
Yes, true. You do the House of Reveries has you help out in a play in one of the expansions.
Yeah, that's in the one
Somerset
in
Isles.
No, it's Blackwood.
It's Blackwood. Okay, and
so that's Southern Cyrodiil.
You do have to do a thing, and no, it's not. Yeah, it is Somerset. Okay.
Oh, it is Somerset. Okay.
And I remember doing that and immediately thinking about the quest in Mournhold and panicking because I did the quest in Mournhold and didn't write down what I was supposed to say. And this is Morrowind we're talking about, so they just let you out there. And I'm like, I don't know what my fucking next line is. I have no idea. And hey, Lotaro. And it's very much like but it's a lot easier to do, thankfully, in the ESO version. But I had like a huge, like, sudden, like, onset of embarrassment and fear at the idea of having to go through another play where I don't know the line. So I was scribbling in a notepad, I remember, while playing ESO, like this line and then this line and this line. I'm like, oh, shit, I know it's going to be multiple choice. I wonder how brutal they're going to be. Anyway, it was fun. Yeah, but you do put on a play in ESO, and that's about it. I think that's just the one thing for the House of Reveries. And the House of Reveries is kind of like the only acting troupe that they really spend any time developing in ESO. Partially, I think, because I think fans like it when they see NPCs from other expansions come back. I think that gets a very positive response. Yep. But also because means they only have one acting troupe they have to develop. And also the House of Reveries is really fucking cool, I have to say. The masks that they wear and stuff, the lore behind them, everybody takes on a type of like archetype character. It's very Campbell. It's very young. I'm about it.
Hey, there we go. Hopefully someone has bingo now. We mentioned Carl Jung.
The plays and stuff are such cool lore, which yeah, I agree. It was really good. Alchemy is my favorite character. Yes, in ESO, yes. Alchemy's fantastic. It's a great character. There's like a lot of anyway, if you take anything from this podcast, it's go play ESO.
Because Elder Scrolls 6 ain't coming out for a while.
Not for a minute. Nope. So,
and apparently, E3 was also canceled. So
yes, that's right. Which is fine because apparently nobody serious was showing up to it anyway. So they just decided screw it. Which sucks. Probably cost them a bunch of money.
They are changing.
Yeah, well, it's PAX now, is what I've. Anyway, hey, thanks everybody for showing up. And we will catch you guys in another 2 weeks for Sermon 21, which is going to be a real meaty one. So hopefully
nice and thick and meaty
and girthy. Yeah, that hot, stiff, girthy lore. Anyway, everybody, goodbye.
Bye everybody. Happy April Fool's Day.
Bye.